to Devlog 5 for Bad Girl Turbo. Let's get this show on the road. In this episode, I'm covering the new third-person controller, level design, visual improvements, and UI. And before we continue, I'd like to highlight that we now have a Discord. So please scan the QR code on the bottom right, join our group, and check out what's there. Join the community. Let me hear what you think of the game and join the discussions. Let's get this going. So, first off, a general update on what's happened since we last spoke. Like I mentioned, we have a new third-person controller, which I'll mention in just a while. We now have enemies as well. And basically, this is now a game. It tracks score, it tracks objectives, there is level design. We have actual designed levels. And there's a progression system that works properly. I've updated the flow because you see, what we had before was a solution where you played the level, you saw the completion screen, and then you saw the level intro or the newscast. And that doesn't really make any sense, so it is now changed so that we have first the newscast, then you play the level, and then you have the completion screen. And the news have been upgraded, so now you actually see multiple different slides. You see insets on the top right of the screen. You see, and the intro can actually have multiple different insets and headlines throughout the level intros, so we can have much more complex and visual storytelling through this newscast now. So that's awesome. And now let's discuss Invector. That's our new third-person controller. Before, we had Fast TPS, which is quite a good and affordable option, but it's not as advanced as we'd like it. It lacks a lot of features, and the creator doesn't have the time to support me sufficiently. So I decided to upgrade to Invector, which is a more expensive solution, but it's much better. It has better animations, smoother gameplay, a higher level of configurability, quite simply. Something I've wanted from the very start, and which I had in my custom third-person controller, was the ability to swap weapons using the D-pad, because I don't like the limitation of just having two guns like in stuff like Call of Duty, but I don't like the way it is in GoldenEye, where you have 40 weapons and you have to cycle through them by mashing the button. That was so annoying. So now it's based on the D-pad. That's what I always wanted, and that's something that comes out of the box in Invector, so that's really cool. Another thing is we now have enemies, and these enemies, they can patrol the level just like originally, just like the AI that I created, but they can also strafe and reload, so they feel much more alive than they did in my version of the game. Next up, we have level design, because yeah, I designed levels now. And that just feels like such a huge step forward. The first level, the one that is most complete, is the gym. It's basically a call to action. It's where the protagonist basically gets called to action. The idea is that the game starts with her being in the gym, working out, doing her morning stuff, when she hears that, the building she's in is being taken over by the villains. So it's an introduction to the story, it's an introduction to the mechanics, and it's an introduction to game structure, it's an introduction to visual communication. And by visual communication, I mean, for example, I've color-coded the environment using lighting. So white and blue lights, they're the critical path. That's in the 90s, that's the kind of lights you would use to highlight, uh, you know, things that are important. You used white lights because that was kind of pricey. Next, we have green lighting for secret areas, red for dangerous areas, and yellow and orange for lesser important stuff. That's a more natural color. It's a bit more dim. Um, and yeah, I've also been introducing lots of props into the game. To create this level, I both use a mix of props that I made myself, as well as stuff off of the asset store, because, like I said in the last video, I no longer frown upon the idea of buying things off of the asset store. This is a one-man project. I have to keep a reasonable scope, and if I can um, build levels much faster, if I can progress with the game much faster by buying assets, then I will do so. So, the game has seen some considerable visual improvements. Last time we spoke, the game only had real-time lighting. The idea was to optimize the game very heavily, to have very quick loading times, to not take up, fill RAM memory with light maps, with backlighting. The thing is that it's, first off, quite dull to look like. It's quite monotone. It's kind of dated looking. And secondly, even when I was quite conservative with lighting, I did see a lot of flickering, and that's no bueno. So I decided to introduce baked lights, and that makes everything more colorful. It improves visibility, um, improves visual variety, um, and I introduced bullet holes. One thing I noticed here was, I'm still going to use the sun as a real-time light source. So there's no ambient light that comes in through the windows. So the next step was to add area lights. So you can see on these two screenshots, on the more distant one in the middle, you can see that by the windows everything is very dark. Everything is very dim. It's very hard to see. So I used area lights to sort of cheat ambient lights, and that gave quite good results. Um, I also color coded, like I said before, and I introduced all of these props. And I'm going to continue providing more props because the levels are quite basic right now. But yeah, next up is UI. That's a very important aspect, both in terms of functionality and in terms of um, selling the idea, selling the mood. Um, so yeah, I created three different concepts. The modern one, which looks like modern games. It's very minimal. It's very easy to read. It's very small. It doesn't distract much. Next up, I had the Memphis concept, which is reminiscent of uh, the Memphis art movement of the 80s and 90s that you saw on posters for I think you saw it for Fresh Prince of Bel Air. So I tried to make a UI like that, which is very bold and eye-catching, and is supposed to sell the idea that this game is not a tactical shooter. It's about fun. It's about enjoyability. Um, and then finally, I had the CRT, and the whole idea of this UI is that it should look like the UI you got on a VCR player or on the TV itself in the 1990s. It's all in gray tones. It all has a drop shadow. It's all very readable, um, and it's low res. And I then asked the people on Discord what they thought. And my conclusions are basically that I'm going to go with the CRT version. because people just find it so easy to read. It's, it's not eye popping. It doesn't, distract or anything. And it sort of sells the idea of the 90s. So, yeah, if you want to influence decisions like this in the future, please join the Discord group. So, where do I go from here? Well, my next step is to work on fun to make this game not only functional as it is right now, to make it actually fun, to make guns that excite people, that are fun to collect, that feel different, that are fun to manipulate, to balance the game so that it's exhilarating and cool and exciting. And of course, AI tweaks, as we saw in the trailer at the start here. The AI uh, is isn't that exciting yet, so I'm going to work on making them much smarter. And of course, level design. I'm going to make more levels. I'm going to fill the levels I have with more stuff to make them more interesting. And another aspect that I need to work on is the uniqueness. I need to create I need a protagonist that's that's cool, that's fun, that sells the idea of fun, that uh, will intrigue people, where people will just look at posters or the box art and go like, "Ooh, that's a cool character. I want to know more about her." And I'm getting help from actually a good artist who might create a new model for her. So I'm very excited about that. I'm excited about all of this. I hope you are too. So yeah, that's it for today. Please follow us on Discord. Please follow me and check everything out on IndieDB. Please tweet about us, about Bad Girl Game. Um, and also check out my homepage. And if you want to hire me, if you want to collaborate with me, please send an email to the below address. As usual, have an awesome day, and I'll see you next time.